Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. Well, afternoon, morning, depending where you are joining us from. It is a pleasure to have you all in the webinar today. And before we start, let me introduce our wonderful panelists. We have one
And
more.
before we
Yes.
start, let me introduce
Our wonderful panelists. We have one
and
more, and Michelangelo will also um, give a little bit of introduction. So the panel today is all about hospitality and sustainability, of course, and how we manage in operations and destinations, and thus that we wanted to have different speakers from completely kind of business type of business models, but we are all working in the same, I would say, towards the same end goal. So whether it's from the destination perspective, with Catherine, CEO of Destination Mekong, or from the technology perspective, with Will from Climato from the UK, joining us from the UK, or John from the asset management perspective or the hotel management perspective that he will join us in a minute. We will have a kind of very rich conversation on how to drive strategies and actually make an impact from the different perspectives and from the different business types. So, Mikel, if you, it's very nice to see you and joining us from very far away. But if you want to introduce yourself as well and a little bit say hi to the audience. We cannot listen to you. Mikel, we cannot listen to you. Yes, not yet. Not yet. We were just before listening you just fine in the pre-session, but not yet. So we will anyways wait. More people is joining the conversation, so that's fine. We are waiting for more people to join the call today. So as I was saying, we have a very rich panel because we have very much different perspectives on sustainability and how the different companies are driving the conversation. So no, Michelangelo, we don't hear you yet. Okay.
Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes. So
Yes,
Catherine,
we hear you.
good. Okay. So we will continue and see. Now that more people are joining. So perhaps let's start with your introductions, and we will go back to Michelangelo in a second. Let me start with Catherine. Catherine, thank you very much for joining us, and of course bringing all your perspective and your more than 25 years of work with communities, with sustainability and destinations, and also in hotels, and you've worked in many different aspects in sustainability and tourism. So it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. That's a great pleasure and honor.
Thank
So,
you.
would you like me to speak or no?
You want to introduce briefly yourself as well to the audience for the few ones that perhaps don't know about Destination Mekong or yourself.
Yeah. So, well, I've been working in sustainable tourism development and marketing for about 20 years, mostly from South Korea, where I lived for 17 years as an expat. And I recently moved to Cambodia, Phnom Penh, as the CEO of Destination Mekong. So, Destination Mekong is a regional destination management and marketing organization, and our main purpose is to champion the Greater Mekong sub-region, which includes China, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Myanmar, and Vietnam. So we are not only covering the areas close to the Mekong River, but the 6 countries. The objective is to create a framework for cooperation, public-private partnership, because we are a private organization. So basically, we are building capacity. We are focusing on the sustainable development of the destination. We really want to promote the Mekong region as a sustainable, attractive, and inclusive tourism destination, creating values and opportunities for all. So that's very important, this word of inclusiveness. And we talked about this before the session. And before I worked for a foundation called Sustainable Tourism for Eliminating Poverty Foundation based in Cambodia, Korea again. And it was a foundation initiated by the World Tourism Organization. I also worked for a hotel in the food and beverage department. And during the COVID, because I was stuck at home and I had a lot of time, I created a travel platform called Heroes, which means the hosts are heroes. So basically, it's a platform sharing community-based tourism travel experiences, eco-friendly accommodations, tours, and activities that are benefiting the local populations and their environment. So what is important in Heroes is that the approach is really giving priority to the local communities first, rather than the travelers. We want to start with the question, what are your needs and expectations regarding travel activities and tourism? And then we match them with the travelers who care. So that's very important, to have this word caring, because this is also a value for Heroes. We focus on quality and value rather than volume and quantity.
Very,
So,
very important. Absolutely, and we were just discussing that before the call today. So you're playing a very important role there, and how we actually drive inclusiveness, as you said, is one of the key challenges, I would say. And I will dig deeper later on and see how are you driving those changes. But before that, let me introduce to Will, and perhaps you can also share a little bit of your work, Will, and what you do with your technology in Climatel.
Yes, thanks very much, Mario. I'm Will. Sort of been my background is very much in CSR and ESG. So having worked within the charity sector, but also looking at sustainability, specifically around food. Um, and I work for a company called Climato, and we help food businesses to help track their carbon emissions from the food that they're serving. We're originally a founder-based company from Sweden, operating now across the Nordics, the UK, and many other parts in Europe, looking to kind of help spread the word and also work in other areas in the very near future, hopefully in Asia as well. At the moment, we've got very much a European grounding, um, and our software is there to try and, I guess, break down those barriers between kind of costly kind of consultants having to do manual projects in terms of helping businesses to bring data more into easy to use and easy to access formats. So we help businesses to kind of look at their carbon footprint from the ingredients and a dish level of what they're doing. So putting in each different one of their recipes, working out what the carbon footprint of that is. And from there, they can then communicate that to internal stakeholders, but also to customers to bring them on that journey towards a more sustainable future, especially when it comes to eating food. So that's
And
a bit
then,
about what.
of course, that's very much a very short way and sum up, simple say to way, but there is a lot of technology and science behind it. And I'll dig deeper a little bit later on and understanding how is the technology actually helping to reduce emissions and also for awareness, because I think it's also educational from that perspective. You have both sides. So in operation it helps, but also educates the consumer and that guest experience. So I'll go back later to you. Let's try if Miguel is with us, and so we can listen to you, Miguel. Because yes, let's see. Yes, you not yet. We cannot listen to you yet. So something must be there. And also, John will be joining us in a bit. So perhaps it's your headphones, because before we were just having a discussion and we could listen to you very much fine. So yeah, no, not yet. So let's start the discussion, because we already have some of the guests with us, and John is also joining us, but we cannot see you, but perhaps we can listen to you. Um, John, can we see if we can listen to you?
Yes, I apologize for this technical issue, but for some reason, and this is the first time it's happened, my camera is not working. I don't know why. Um, thank you very much for the invitation to join this webinar. Just my background has been managing hotels, five-star hotels throughout Asia Pacific over the last 35 years or so. And I've been in Vietnam for the last 16 years. The hotel that I was managing for most of those years, for 15 of those years, Caravel Hotel, which is quite an iconic hotel. When I first moved there nearly 16 years ago, 15 years ago, I was one of the first, or we were one of the first hotels to introduce environmental practices and sustainability practices. And I appointed an environmental manager for the hotel, which was something quite new for Vietnam in those days. And we gained a number of different environmental awards over the years, and compliance awards as well. So, it's really been something quite dear to my heart, is environmental compliance, because I've always believed that, if everyone does a little bit, then, it can make a difference overall. My current role, I left Caravel just over a year and a half ago, and I'm now CEO of a hotel management company here in Vietnam. And it's just a very, very new company, but certainly one of the foundations of the company. It's called Archipelago Indochina. Will be ensuring all the hotels that we have absolutely have a very, very robust environmental compliance strategy. And it's very, very important that we see that as just a part of every day going forward. That's the way of life. It should be in hotels. And it just makes good business sense. Apart from all the other good stuff for the community, it makes good business sense as well, on top of making sure that we are part of the global move for environmental compliance.
Absolutely. And then I'll ask you, how is it in your daily operations, because you have so many brands. I know you're in a celebration 25 years of this, and operating different hotels, more than 150 properties, and how it is actually to make those changes, the challenges to make those changes in a daily basis, and with so many destinations and locations across countries. I know must be challenging, but as you said, you have the right thing, that you have the right mindset, and it's not reason you appointed a green leader or someone that was sustainability manager back in the day, which it was quite nuanced, because even nowadays we still don't have in some properties. So it's great to have that insight, and I'll definitely go back to you and ask you questions. But let me see if Mikel is with us now. Mikel Angel,
I think I'm here.
you
Can
are
you hear me
with
now?
us. Good.
I'm finally
Yes.
here. Wow. What to say? What to say about the technology here? Well, let's go backwards to have everybody already introduced here, and me, I just continue, just adding value. It is a great pleasure from my side to be here working with Maribel. We've been several months now trying to prepare this online talk for all of you and all the audience. A great pleasure also to have the colleagues and that you just introduced. I found very, very interesting topics there. I think we have quite many hours to talk or further session. We were saying what we will plan to do is some events like this just periodically, if everything comes well, I think there are plenty of topics, like John was saying now, or Catherine, plenty of topics that we can cover. Well, from my side here in Vietnam, I've been based here for 23 years now, and with John we have regular coffees here. I mean, aside of professional relationship, we used to catch up very often. And I do own. I'm the founder of a company called MQL Sustainable Tourism Services, and what we are doing, we try to support a little bit all the industry, and from public to private sector, on sustainability approach, on implementing new measures, on see if we can train and retrain people from the authorities, from the Vietnam Tourism Advisory Board that I'm representing for the last 5 years, to universities, to private sector, to different organizations. What we do found here in Vietnam is that is a country that with 100 million population is exploding in terms of tourism for the last recent years, with plenty of construction in islands, in coastlines, in mountains, and we do not always observe a lot of sustainability linked to these projects. With Maribel, we have quite long talks on via telephone and online, discussing on this, on that, and the idea of bringing this Asia together with Europe is to see how can we implement some of the things that in Europe you already more advanced that we are here in some destinations here in Asia. And opposite, some of the experience that we have here in terms of reverting back to Europe and restructuring some of the things that were already done. So that's a little bit the motto. I keep following up the conversation. Back to you, Maribel, and I think it's very, very interesting. If you can brief us yourself a little bit on what you're doing and how you're doing, and from there we go.
Yes, thank you, Mikel. And I would like to kind of piggyback on that and say, well, you have a lot of work with the public and private sector as well, and we are here work in this call from various from different approaches, and from my work as well is a little bit of research, and from the academic side, but also being on site with hotels, but mostly in Europe. So I'm very curious, how are you advancing in Asia as well, and how are other countries advancing without the pressure from regulations, and how is naturally from the startup community, from every single community growing, because it's super interesting, especially that project that you have, Hero, Catherine, that I'll ask you in a second, is there are a lot of things moving that we don't have to wait until regulation have or is pressuring us, so we can actually have this purpose-driven approach and make ourselves the changes. And I think the five of us here, we do want to do that, and we are leading from the different countries and activities we are doing, whether it's in here in Europe or Asia. So before I start with you, Catherine, I wanted to mention for all the audience that please send us questions and all your insights and things you want to share with us, because I want this call to be dynamic as well and not just one direction. So we can also make sure that if you have questions, we take in consideration that into our conversation. So let me start. We're in a very critical point, and we all know, and the audience that is with us know, that we're in a critical moment for society, for the environment, but also as societies, as the young leaders are listening to us as well, and we have a responsibility from our positions to take change and to make a change, right? And every theory of change has like three main things, which is a start point, what we are at the moment, a pathway we should all follow, and an ambition that we where we want to see our cities, our hotels, our destinations, our companies at. So what decisions we make along the way matter, and I want to use this call to make a reflection as well and say, well, from where we are or where our actions, our impact, how we can support that reality. Internationally, we have the SDGs that we all know about them. The most likely will be 2050 agenda, and we will see some changes from the 2030 goals, because of course we are not on track. We are way far to achieving the goals. And there are so many other aspects that we have to consider to do this transition. We also have the 2050 biodiversity conservation or the post 2020 framework that we all have. We will keep seeing that information after the COP25, COP15, and it's going to be another challenge because we have to adapt to protect biodiversity and how our companies are supporting that biodiversity protection. And then we have the climate agenda, which we have all know, we already know that we have to stay below 1.5, and we are also way below and off track that ambitious goal from not only Europe, from worldwide. So that is taking us from a different perspectives. So the question today is how we can decouple the environmental impacts that we are having to the economic growth and destinations thriving and creating prosperity and creating abundance from them. So let me start with you, Catherine, because I know you've done a lot of work there and you're continuously doing it with various initiatives, whether it's Hero, Millennium Destinations, or Destination Mekong itself. And it'll be great to learn more about your projects and how are you supporting your community there.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your question. So, I have a lot of things in mind, and I try not to be too long. But first, I would say, during my whole career, which is not over, I hope, I just realized that we need first, I love to read reports when I have time, but we need to be very pragmatic. And what is very important to me is the purpose. What is actually explaining the why we are here. What makes life a learning experience. Very interestingly, I would say, or not, I would say I'm Eurasian, meaning that half French with Asian roots from Vietnam, but it took me a while, to embrace my Asian roots instead of rejecting them. The thing is, why is it interesting is that I have this, European approach of sustainability, which is kind of rational, kind of strict, I would say, too strict. And then there is, I would say, a more holistic and approach from the Asian side, which is more, focusing on harmony and balance. So my point is that why I'm saying that it's not black and white, because this is the beauty of yin yang. Black and white are complementary. But I would say what I can feel from the European side or the, let's say, the Western side is a lot of fingers pointed and lessons given, and you should do this, you should do that, and at the end of the day, a lot of anxiety. And in Asia, it's a little less, strict. But I would say it's there is also a problem of ownership. I would say because many times when I was giving some presentations, not even lecture, because I don't like too much lecturing people, but I just noticed that many people didn't take ownership of the concept of sustainability, because for them sometimes it's a Western concept, and it's kind of we are in despair, because as you said, we are far from achieving those sustainable development goals, and we are far from reaching the milestones, and every day we have a new crisis coming. What I would say, in reality, nobody's perfect. So of course we need sustainable tourism. When people say, what is sustainable tourism? I tell them it's a framework, it's a strategic vision, it's a business model, desirable business model, it's even a lifestyle. But it's just like, when you are on a boat, sustainability is not only keeping the boat afloat, but also reaching your destination. So I would say it's a journey at the end of the day, and I'm not the only one, saying that, because it's just like a mirage sometimes. The more you get closer to sustainability, it disappears because you cannot touch it. We have all these ideas ideal situation where everybody is happy, peace, understanding, shared prosperity, and environmental sustainability, and etc. But I mean, we need to be very pragmatic. We need to be realistic, and we need, most important for me, we need to care about people. You know, we need to show empathy, and that's also the skill you develop when you are involved in marketing. You learn how to care about people. You need how to understand their needs and expectations. You learn how to put your feet on their shoes and think the way they think, instead of just telling them you should do this and you should do that, because sometimes it's very convenient, but you cannot achieve anything. So I would say, rather than pointing fingers, we need very slowly and progressively lead people to adopt new lifestyles, to change mindset, but to make people think that they will gain something out of this instead of losing something. Because I always say, the same as for destination marketing, destination should be accessible, but also irresistible and attractive, of course. And people say, "Oh, Catherine, like you." No, not like me. I may be accessible, but not irresistible. What I mean is that in spite of, a lot of facilities, lifting travel restrictions and everything, people still resist, and people still resist sustainability. And I would say, for me, my point with Heroes or Millennium Destinations or even Destination Mekong is to make sustainability irresistible. Because right now people resist, because between having fun and enjoying, because they think that life that is not sustainable is more enjoyable. They don't want to opt for more sustainable practices, because it's all about practice, sustainability. You have principle, like I would say in some way religion or spiritual development. You have those principles, and you have those rituals, and you have the practice. And some people told me recently, "Oh, Catherine, you're an evangelist." I said, "Not an orthodox one, but yes, we need people who have positive influence, who can really, instead of trying to make destinations or accommodations popular, just popular, there should be a purpose, there should be some values, there should be some meaning behind, and there should be also a positive contribution, positive change, positive impact." So when we talk about positive, sometimes it's a little more accessible, understandable than sustainability, because what did we do before sustainability? Sustainability is not a concept from the prehistoric, the cavemen. Even if cavemen at some point they were more sustainable than us, it's really common sense. If we continue like this, we're going to destroy the planet. And the best illustration for that is the tourism industry, hospitality industry. So for me, tourism is not the end of the end of the day. It's a model industry to promote practices, to promote new projects and initiatives. And it's also, I would say, at some point, even like a laboratory, social laboratory, environmental laboratory, where we can directly experience, the consequence of bad behaviors or unsustainable practices. So if we can, create cases through the travel and tourism and hospitality industry, that will be also the positive contribution. So I think I'm talking too much. Maybe I
No,
could have.
it's very interesting because everything you said, it's very much the basis of what should be as a vision, what should be all pursuing as an industry, and understanding the driving value for the community, the shared value for everyone, and not just focus on a few, but also considering planetary boundaries. So we cannot continue to grow without understanding that we live within an ecosystem, biodiversity, and we are disconnected. And I think you were mentioning that very well, that there is a disconnect between what the people feel, what the people is experiencing in travel, and the actual nature and the needs of nature. There is a disconnect there, and I like it. Something that you said at the beginning very well is that you have these two different approaches. So one more kind of structure from the European countries, right? So when we talk about regulation, we talk about processes. Everything is more structured, if you want to put it that way. But then you have the holistic side from the Asian people, which is fantastic because you have that more spiritual, if you let me that word, more holistic, more understanding of what a human experience is and how we can interact, right? Growth, development, but at the same time, connecting all the dots between nature, people, and all the demands and requests. So I think it's very interesting. Thank you very much for the input. Before I continue with you, yeah, sorry. No, I wanted just to say that before we continue, I wanted to ask to John, even though we cannot see you, hopefully we can still hear you and you're with us. So, from the operational perspective, what are your challenges? And having operations in countries, you're basically you have worldwide presence. So many different brands targeting different audiences, whether it's young people or more senior or high net worth individuals. How do you manage the sustainability practices on a more operational level, and how are you doing this transition? Because you said you already had inputs and practices from many years ago, but now that is even I guess more demanding, and things are changing, evolving, consumers expectations are changing, and sustainability is kind of the a commodity is expected. How are you managing that at the operational level?
I think a lot of it starts with education. So what we spend a lot of time training staff and within all the hotels. So once the staff are very aware, once we put the policies in place, we train all of our staff about the values, about the outcomes, and the benefits of sustainability. So but it's not just for the hotel. I think one of the things I've found over the years is that once we train the staff to understand the values and the benefits of sustainability practices within the hotel, and then to expand that back to not just the hotel and not just the guests of the hotel, but also their families and friends, and educate their friends and families to all of these practices that we put in place in the hotel. A lot of the practices we put into the hotel are particular to the hotel. For example, recycling grey water within the hotel, using that over again so that we're not wasting, we're not always using fresh water all the time. And recycling our waste that comes through the hotel, those sorts of things. And using, not using plastic bottled water bottles, using glass bottles and refilling, and many things that we do within the hotel are particular to the hotel. But I found that once we started these practices, the staff very quickly took it on board, because I think particularly younger people, they do know, they are aware. They even in developing countries such as Vietnam, and I'm sure other countries around the region, they are aware. They're very conscious. They watch TV. They're online. They read things that are online. They know the benefits of sustainable practices, and I think a lot of them, probably more in rural places within the country. It's unfortunate to say, but they're more. They put more emphasis on where is our next meal coming from, rather than do we have sustainable practices within the community. Not so much in the city, but I've found over the years traveling around this region that that the people in the rural areas, they somewhere sort of understand, but there are more important things in life than thinking about the environment, and that's a very sad thing to say, but it's a fact of life. And we somewhere have to try and educate those people as well. But it's what I said before: education of the staff. That's where it starts. Putting the practices in place and having an extensive environmental compliance practice within the hotel, all the hotels, and making sure that we retain those standards, and making sure that we not just educate the staff, but make sure that we inform all of our guests through various ways that we are a very sustainable hotel in our operations. We tell people, and we're very proud of that fact.
That's indeed very interesting, and of course, um, we can't 100%, as you said, Catherine, very well. It's just a journey, right? So we are on that, and education is very important. It's a key practice, and not just to internal stakeholders like investors and employees, but also externally with communities and destination, and making them part of it how it could thrive the destination if they are part of this, and we are not just there to have the hotel operation sustainable, but rather, as you said very well, John, to go beyond that and have a more holistic approach to sustainability. And you said last thing is educate the guest and also inform the guest about your practices. So the technology will have a great technology for that. So I wanted to learn more as well from your perspective, Will, how the use of technology can support and leverage sustainability practices in hospitality operations, especially I know you focus with food and measuring the impact of what we eat and making easier choices or informed choices using technology. So it'd be great to learn more about how it is that you measure the impact and how you use your technology or your software to bring that awareness and education for both chefs and also guests and the staff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's can I just add something in there? Can I just put something in? But before we switch over, I just want something that I read last week in an article, that between 8 and 10% of greenhouse gases are caused by food wastage
Mm,
around the world. So
yeah.
if we can somewhere control that, that's a huge percentage. In fact, food wastage causes more um, uh, uh, and has a much greater negative environmental effect than airline fuel.
Yes. And,
Yeah.
and and to add something else that I'm sure will you will continue, but we have I'm sure Benjamin perhaps is not here, but some of you might know Benjamin from Light Blue Consulting, and he does technology to prevent food waste. And I would say that is about 7% of EBITDA that we could save in terms of cost. So that is a lot of cash that we could be using to other sources and other, positive impact initiatives in
Mm.
operations. So thank you for the note, John. And sorry,
Yes.
Will, that we have cut your
Yes,
the,
sorry,
No
I
worries.
didn't really need to butt in. I just want to add that. That's
yeah.
all.
So
No, it's really interesting. I think there's so much. Yeah, food waste is a huge issue, and there's so many great technologies out there to kind of help combat that. Looking at we have conversations with a company called Winnow, for example, who use artificial intelligence to kind of help cut food waste by looking at each different product and have a computer scanning that, and also helping them then to kind of reduce costs on it. I think they say that sort of food waste can cost the hospitality industry about 100 billion annually. So $100 billion. That's quite incredible. With kitchens wasting up about, I think it's something about 20% of all food is often wasted, just from which can be some of that is kind of stuff which can be reused or kind of put in a different menu or different ingredients. But yeah, I think that's quite incredible. But looking at other technology, I think it's also important. Whilst technology is incredibly important to help the food industry going forward. I think it's touching on what Catherine said about kind of changing people's mindsets, making sure that they kind of gain something out of it rather than just losing something is also important. So what we try and do is kind of provide the technology, but also provide that marketing and communication support alongside it, because it's all very well providing people information, but if you're not explaining it in a way that can get people engaged, then it kind of can get lost. And I think from the hospitality industry perspective, I think we've obviously got that big difference between kind of the global north and the global south in terms of emissions, where I think we over in the global north have a lot more responsibility for what we're looking at. So making sure that we kind of take the lead in terms of having that technology and implementing that technology for kind of leading the way in that. What we do at Climato is try and provide the hospitality industry with the data. So looking at, by knowing exactly what your carbon footprint is from each of the dishes you're serving, and then reporting back on that, you can actually see what your carbon footprint is. A lot of businesses out there these days are looking at making these net zero commitments and these net zero targets without actually knowing what their emissions are now, which seems somewhat counterintuitive, because to know where you need to go, you need to know what you're at now. So by using a technology to work out what that is, you can kind of make a more informed plan and actually kind of look at how you will transition to kind of trying to hit the UN targets of sort of that 7.8% reduction that they recommend year on year to hit the Sustainable Development Goals. So what our tool tries to do is kind of provide hotels with that information, and they also, what we found is it's also a great tool in terms of bringing customers on board and also bringing in kind of corporate clients as well. A lot of corporate companies out there are leading the way in terms of wanting to have meetings which are more net zero, having meetings which are kind of appealing to their ESG goals. So by demonstrating in a kind of communicating that information in the right way, it's kind of a win-win in terms of reducing emissions, but also bringing in new business. So I think we need to be at a stage where we realize that a lot of decisions are still money orientated. So if we can help provide technology which is helping improve the data around climate friendly dishes being more cost effective. We did a study recently with Sodexo, who are a contract catering company, that they found that 63% of their dishes were 63% cheaper if they were climate friendly. So that's what those sort of stats can really help bring about some more sustainable practice, I think, by kind of showing those two aspects side by side.
Absolutely, and this is what you said about data. I think is one of the greatest challenges in operations and hotels, but also in destinations, using more technology to track and monitor data, and to be more transparent. Because I think and perhaps you agree with me, or I don't know what's your view on this, but I think that sustainability even more now is going to be more about transparency. When we talk about, this is my next question, that I'll go back to you, Catherine, in a minute, but before we continue to talk about sustainability, we have to think about regeneration and some other words that are flourishing. But there is a lot of talk. But when we talk about operations, when we talk about reality, when we talk about the daily basis, the gathering data, the processes, that is when I want to understand what is really regeneration and how we make it possible, because there is a huge challenge there. So I think transparency is a good way to put it. How to be more transparent with the practices we are doing, and how to use technology, as you said, for instance, to kind of track that and be more informed and also be more efficient. Absolutely, but it shouldn't be the main goal. So I'll go back to you in a second, but Catherine, I'm very interested also in learning about your action plan with Destination Mekong. How do you have like 3 big pillars you're working on? How are you making that a reality? So I know you're very much community driven and supporting community-based tourism, but on a daily, how is your daily operations with Daily Mekong, and how you help with that action plan to make it a reality?
Wow, that's a good question. I would say, we need to keep in mind that, we are not fully, out of the COVID pandemic. And well, for me, that is very important that our people, our members, our partners, and people who trust us, because, trust is a strong part of branding. And so that's why, we are working on our own branding exposure and awareness. We want people to trust us, and we want people to be sure that we are here to support them, not to lecture them or to feel like above that we know everything. We are here to support them. We are here to support their efforts in the recovery and resilience. So we are building capacity. And to be honest, we don't have also much many resources. So what I was telling you before is that when you don't have resources, you have to be creative and you need to be smart. And when I talk about smart, it's not only technologies, but also a smart approach, of using the resources in a smart way and not wasting. Sometimes waste for me it's really absurd. Why do we keep producing over waste? Because life is about waste. Consumption and waste. We breathe, we eat, and we produce waste individually. But unnecessary waste is scandalous. I would say we cannot continue like this. I mean we are smarter than that. So what I want to say is that little by little, we want to share good practices. We want to give exposure to the brands of our members. We will also want to build the content, and we want to share content through storytelling. We need to be more emotional when we talk about sustainability, because it's not only about environment. It's about people. It's about people dying. It's about people, not being able to eat, and it's not only about enjoyment of travelers in a destination. So there are always, this parallel between destinations and people. A destination needs to build trust, confidence. A destination needs to build engagement. Destination need to promote strong values, sustainability values, but not only sustainability. If we want to be a little more accessible and to people, we just need to talk about a good destination, a good business, a good life. And when you talk about a good business, certainly it's not about lying to people or claiming that you are green while you are brown or I don't know which color. I would say this is kind of insulting, these days. I know some people don't even know that they are not sustainable, but some people, when they clearly know that what they do is not sustainable and claim they are green, and this is also misleading because, as I said, sustainability is not only about environment; it's about also people, culture, values, well-being. And what I was saying before, for me, tourism is not an end. Tourism is a tool for socio-economic development of the host communities, and this is why I built Heroes and also Millennium Destinations. So what I mean is that we need to be human. Of course, climate change, of course, waste, of course, carbon emissions. This is important, but there is this, heavy guiltiness that at the end of the day makes people lie about everything. Green destinations don't exist. Sustainable destinations don't exist. Destination having a sustainable development strategy, yes, or having a sustainability practices, yes, but I'm a green destination, I'm a sustainable destination. It doesn't exist. I went to, I will not name the destination, but, so-called green destination, and it was full of litter, full of people, begging in the street. And how can you claim that you are sustainable and green when you see that? And that's reality.
Yes, that's a very good point, and I'm going to say that. And we have the Sustainable Development Goals Index and that ranking, and when countries disclose the information, just because you can finger point what SDGs you're working on, it doesn't mean you are sustainable, and you have a holistic approach to regenerative practices. And the same happens with hotels. We have that bias, the cherry picking problem, where we just say, well, we're doing X, Y, Z, but that doesn't mean that you are 100% on the right path, or you are doing your best. So absolutely agree, and of course we are trying to do our best, but we have to be very careful to how we educate our consumer if we are talking about the destination or we are talking about the hotel. And again, I think it's being transparent is easier because you can say, well, we have to improve, we still have to tackle poverty, we have people begging in our streets and you're coming to our destination, but this is still a huge challenge in our country. So of course that is very, policymakers also have to be engaged on this. I think is a very I would say not just challenge, but uh, we have to work collectively, cooperate, and that's the only way to having thriving cities and destinations. So yeah, sorry, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, I wanted to add also that we cannot put everything and everybody in boxes. We are living in a ecosystem, and sometimes a policymaker can be a traveler, and sometimes So myself, I'm also a travel business, but I'm also a traveler, and at some point I'm also a policymaker for my own life. So I would say, and at the end of the day, also the travel experience is co-created. So it means that even if you claim that you're a green hotel, maybe your guests want to have 10 showers, or they want to open the window when there is aircon, and they want to overeat, and produce a lot of food waste. This, as you said, it's not only production, but also consumption, but also policy making and education. It's all connected, and the problem with the SDGs, they are all separated. Of course, they are part of the same story, but I would say I was joking, recently that there are 17 goals that nobody remind them, and they have to put some colors to make them attractive. I'm an advocate basically of sustainability and sustainable development goals. But I would say, if you think again about the Asian mindset that is more into harmony and the connection with the nature, and we are not separated from the environment or from the nature. We are nature. We are everything. So it's always, again, misleading to say, okay, not my responsibility. Everybody is responsible now and later. And what is also important, and I don't want to talk too much about this, but energy is very important. And the same way, some people can drain your energy. Some people can create energy to you. And I think these days, after, it's not even after, it's during this COVID pandemic, people need to heal. It's not only people, the planet needs to heal. And when we learn how to really manage our energy, and I'm not talking about only oil and electricity or whatever, it's also personal energy, then we won't learn, the lessons of this life.
Of course, because and it's just bringing awareness and understanding that our industry is part of a living system and is nature first, and then we are there, and not the all way around, and we depend on ecosystem services to thrive. And Michelangelo said something very interesting in the chat, is that the individual approach is key for bringing sustainability principles ahead. And this is what you said as well, Catherine, and I'm sure you agree that it's just our collective effort. And we also have in our own businesses, we are trying to do it because we believe in it and because we are part of it. Otherwise, we are bringing that energy into that transition, transformation. And I wanted to, of course, have your perspective, John, and being with such a, I think you have more than 15,000 employees, if that is correct. So how do you bring awareness to such a big workforce and having operations, even though you are a committed brand, what is the level of control to change and having that positive impact in the different areas from the asset management perspective as well, whether it's a pre-opening or a retrofit or an operating asset. So how do we bring that awareness that we were just saying into hotel operations?
Just to clarify, I'm just CEO of Archipelago Indochina, so I'm not directly involved in Archipelago International. So I don't have that many employees working for me directly.
I'm sure you have a
But
lot.
I mean, what we do, we make sustainability part of the culture of the individual hotels, or not just the individual hotels. In fact, the whole company. And when it becomes part of the culture, it becomes second nature. And that's what we try to do. And I just emphasize what I said before. It's education, and then once it becomes part of the fabric of the company, then it becomes an everyday practice. So that's what we do, and we convince owners as well. Some owners of hotels and developers. It's sad to say, but some just don't care, and that's very, very unfortunate. But we honestly we would rather not work with those owners and developers. We would rather work with owners that do care, that do understand, that money and profits are not always number one. Sure, they can still be number one, but a close second has got to be environmental compliance, because at the end of the day, if we don't have a planet that we can move around on, if we have the weather patterns getting worse of what we're experiencing in the last year or two, then we won't have tourists. And a lot of developers really get that, they understand, but yeah, as I said, unfortunately, some don't. But developing that culture within the company, making it as a foundation, I think that's the way we do it, and we've been very successful in doing that.
And that's a very good point that you said, because not necessarily we understand the risks, and not all the stakeholders who we deal with. As a very fragmented industry, we have to kind of collaborate and educate each other on the risks and to not taking action. If we're talking about properties, it can be climate related risk, it can be transitional risks, it can be anything affecting or disrupting operations, supply chains, etc. So, as you said very well, it has to be a priority, and of course, we want to work with like-minded peers. From the technology perspective, Will, I know you used a kind of LCAs or life cycle assessments in the products and all that. So I wanted to understand more. Do you also work in partnerships? How are you supporting your technology to actually bring awareness, and to make an impact? So how are you organizing yourself? You work with hotels, we work with restaurants, caterings, etc. But how do you kind of bring that impact into a reality, besides offering the software itself, which I understand that is easy or user friendly technology?
Yeah, no, I think as I said, it's very much about providing the technology, but also providing the framework to use that technology, and it differs depending on who you're bringing on that journey with you. For like I said, for hotels, they have a very different understanding, and I think very embedded in the local community often. So we try and always encourage businesses to try and source local ingredients. So we look at, like you said, the life cycle assessment of each individual product, and by sourcing local ingredients and looking at different farming practices like regenerative farming, where kind of a lot of work's been done into kind of how that can benefit sustainability initiatives, but also kind of stuff like soil, which if we don't look after that soil, we could have no soil left by 2060. So we try, once we look at carbon and that, we also look at understand that sustainability is a wider angle. So what we try and do is provide different businesses with a way of communicating that to customers. So we provide the software, and then we also look at something called carbon labels. So for each different dish, you can put a carbon label next to that, and that's basically looking at like carbon dioxide, but also methane and nitrous oxide. I think about 75% of all methane comes from the food production industry, from cows predominantly. And so communicating that to customers is really important. And we've used UN sustainability goals alongside WWF to kind of look at the best way to communicate that. So they recommend that as an individual, we should be having no more than 11 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalents per week. So that equates to about 0.5 kilograms per main meal. So main dish. Obviously, trying to put that into hospitality context is sometimes tricky in terms of a buffet or a breakfast buffet, but we try and use that as a general framework. And just to put that in context, the global average today is about 1.74 kilograms per main meal. So to kind of hit those goals, we need to sort of reduce our emissions by about 2/3 to be on track. So we've still got a little bit of a challenge ahead of us. But the idea is to try and make it really clear to consumers about what is a sustainable meal, because we see a lot of people want to eat more environmentally friendly. Especially here in the UK, we're seeing a real rise of people having a flexitarian diet or identifying as a flexitarian, which I'm not sure was a phrase even 10 years ago, perhaps. We're trying to advocate the rise of climatarians as well, eating more climate friendly, because we worked on COP26 on the kind of labeling the dishes there, and interestingly, something like a chicken pizza was actually more climate friendly than just a margarita pizza, because it had more mozzarella cheese on it, which interestingly people probably wouldn't assume is the case because there's no meat in it. So it's not always about having vegetarian versus no meat. It's about eating more cleverly. But that's why our software can help bridge that gap between what does that really mean. So by having those labels on the menus, customers can see what they're eating. Businesses can help reduce their carbon footprint by having those dishes on the menu. And we found that about 75% of people do pay attention to the labels when choosing those dishes over a longer given period. So we know that it works in terms of that. But that is, of course, just one part of sustainability when it comes to carbon, which is, just hitting one of those development goals. There's so much more to it in terms of supporting local economies as well.
Well, I think everything is connected, as we said before. Something I wanted to mention before with that you said ESG very much linked to the environmental perspective, environmental impacts. However, everything we cannot separate. Everything is interlinked. Everything is connected, because if you support local agriculture, you support local regenerative farming, local farmers, you support local communities, you have less emissions because you're sourcing locally. So I think that everything very much is linked, and you have a wonderful mission as well there with the education and how you sort of enable that to hospitality companies, as well as using technology for the data. So I think it's great. But we cannot change and we cannot change the fact that everything is connected and one action leads to another one, and that we have good impacts and we surround ourselves and our businesses with great companies and technologies. We can also having even better outcomes. And when I was thinking about the event today, I was thinking about the word sustainability a lot and the regenerative word a lot, and the back in the day CSR, as you said, that you used to be in CSR, and that all days of managing social and environmental impacts. And my question is, if we do believe and we are doing the right thing and we are doing our best with our peers, with our employees, with our community, we are in the right track. Do we need these certifications? Do we need the labels? Do we need to change the names? Do we need to just tear down an acronym like the same happened with the ESG word? Or it's just a matter of systems thinking, understanding that we just have limits, that there is a limit to growth, and that we need to redesign our business models around it? Do you believe is that the way forward? I'm just here speaking my mind, and I want to listen your input. What do you think is the way forward for our industry? Because we rely on nature, we rely on social stability, we rely on communities. So I want to hear your last insight on that. It'll be great to have your input. Miquel, you wanted to say something.
It's a bit complex. I'm listening carefully to all your very, very interesting inputs from all sides, from the technological side, from the operation, from the vision that Catherine also has to. I keep turning around a little bit on this holistic perspective that you say here about in Asia, more spiritual, more whatever we call it here. But I think here in Asia we are back to basics. And when I say back to basics, is that now we observe here the technology, how we are measuring, how we are having plenty of tools, all connected, blockchains into place, all kind of control, all measures here. Here back in Vietnam or Southeast Asian countries here, we are now having issues collecting the solid waste. Collecting, not sorting, because we don't sort in any way. We burn, we bury, we throw into the beach.
Oh gosh.
That's what I say, back to basics here. So
Yes.
here, what we observe, that there is this clash between this 21st century now, on all interconnected, as we say now today here, Europe with Asia, with all kind of technologies, all kind of tools, and all this in contrast with people going cycling every single day in front of my home, picking up something from a garbage bag to be resold and resold and resold, and maybe not recycle at all, just sold until something happened later on. So of course this affects a lot to the not only the tourism industry, if not to our day-to-day life in big cities or big countries with 100 million population here in Vietnam, for example. So our job is a little bit similar to what John is doing. And we go and talk to owners. We refuse to talk to owners that have no principles, that only look for the short-term profit, because the sustainability is not there, because all the waste is discharged into the sea without any control. And this is what we see, that in Europe, we already have the experience in cases like in Catalonia, in Spain, in France, in Italy, where all this was reverted back. We did that in the 70s when the tourism started there. And now we have to redo it back again with a higher cost than initially and go back to the origins again. So here is the point that we are now. We are advising here many professionals, that we are advising not only the government, if not private sector, in all ways, try to tell them not to do it wrong. Just learn from our bad experiences in the past.
I think he's frozen. The connection, we are too far. But I understand his point, and so basically the efforts must be from every single angle. But especially for operators, and we have new developments. Yes, we missed you a little bit. I was just saying that the importance of policymakers when we have new developments. Yes.
Yes. No, just say that this contrast between Europe and all the applications and the technology and everything that is already created there is arriving here instantly. All the things you're doing, the sustainable development goals, everything is on the table. At the same time, we have the people on the street going cycling by bicycle or walking, picking up some trash just to make a living. So this beauty, and at the same time big concern, because to make, let's say, to make conscious, to change the mind of an individual that is earning a few euro cents a day for living, it is difficult to convince and talk about sustainability and recycling the thing with somebody who's sitting in the office there looking at the things passing by with no complaints in any of the sites. But that's the reality here in Asia. Back to you, Maribel.
No, absolutely, and I think that's part of the beauty of working in sustainability, that we have so many challenges from some different fronts that we have to change. But very much policymakers can make that decision. So we cannot, or we will not allow to exploit this land, or we will have policies for new operators. Brands can put guidelines for operator contracts. As you said very well, John, you have a very important position there, because you can decide who you want to be doing business with, who are your contractors, how are your sourcing policies, How is your staff engagement and labor practices? And from the destination management perspective, how do we protect human rights and not just promote for numbers, as you said very well, Catherine, but we also understand the human side of it. Um, and I think we are at that moment where everyone is in different parts of the world. We are just thinking how we can do best with the resources we have and with the tools we have, together or not with policymakers and regulations. But as we said at the beginning, it's better not to wait because no regulation is perfect. And there are so many different jurisdictions that we cannot wait until we have that policy, right?
Just can I just make a comment there, Maribel? And I just want to give you an example of a very nice developer that we're working with right now in a project down on the coast for a small resort in Vietnam. When I got involved in the project, they said to me that they want to source all the building products and all of the decoration, all of the furniture, everything locally, for sustainable reasons, not for financial reasons, because they've got the money to import all of the furniture, all of the wallpapers, everything from overseas. But no, they want to source locally because they really believe that sourcing locally is not only good for the environment, but good for the local economy. And then further to that, which really surprised me, they said when we open the restaurants and develop the restaurants, we want as much as possible, if possible, 100% of all the ingredients in the menus and all the restaurants to be sourced locally. And I was so impressed that it wasn't me telling them; it was them telling me. So I was very impressed, and there's such lovely developers, people that we're working with on this particular project. And I think it's a great example of maybe younger developers that really understand the consequences of non-compliance to environmental issues. So they were telling me, I wasn't telling them. So it's just a small story I thought I'd add in.
No, it's very important, and I think that because those guys are leading the way, we will have so many other laggards that are still waiting to make the right choices, follow them. Because another discussion is, do we have a competitive advantage because we are doing sustainability, or it's just expected from us that we behave in this way? We respect human rights and we source locally and we try to do our best. So here is now where it comes the dichotomy. Is this what we're supposed to be doing just naturally, right? And some companies like this contractor in your example are leading the way without perhaps even without expecting the regulation, because there you don't have it, or in those countries there is no strict regulations in terms of sourcing. So there is no regulation that says 100% of your ingredients must be sourced locally. It doesn't exist. So this is great that we see those examples happening even more. Sorry, Catherine, did you wanted to say something?
I think now you are scared when I'm speaking because I'm speaking.
Absolutely not.
No, so what I wanted to say, yes, also I believe that the technologies are a tool. So we need to learn, how to use them properly for positive results and achievement. And I would say what is good in Asia, at least in Cambodia, for example, there are a lot of young people. And as I said before, nobody is a born entrepreneur, or nobody is born with, the perfection. And so I don't know anybody, perfect around me. So this is, something that you learn. And my point also is that first, value is important. So it's not only the values of respect, dignity, and, inclusiveness, but also marketing is helping, to capture the value and to create value. So this is what we are doing actually with Destination Mekong. We are building value through education and capacity building. We are building value and capturing value through marketing and also through branding, because branding is about values. And I would say we want also to empower. I know that this word is used a lot and sometimes improperly, but the women and the young people, because again, I'm not a feminist, I'm just a woman, so I think it's good enough to talk about women. But I would say sometimes there is a different approach, but I'm not saying that women are better than men, because, the young women are consuming a lot of, fast fashion and cosmetics and everything. And so I would say these kind of behaviors have limited value. They are creating, again, needs, envy, anxiety, because you don't have what you want, and you are just, I was really concerned that on the Facebook, many people now are just saying, I envy you, I'm jealous of you, you are so lucky, meaning that I don't have any luck. So I think we should promote, positive behavior, and as I said, encourage positive influencers, those influencers that can, have a positive, influence on the consumers. And I would say also, at the end of the day, I think we need to deconstruct everything. We need to deconstruct the fact that owning is a value, that having a golden watch is great, or having a yacht probably is great, but I don't have one. I mean, we want to possess things, we want to possess people, we want, I think we should change, this mindset. We should change even the hospitality industry is very conservative. I was screening, reviewing a lot of websites of hotels. It's so boring. What interests me, is the stories of people working there, the vision of the owner, of the manager. I visited Vietnam, one of the resorts, and at the beginning I was just careful, cautious that it was called green resort. So say again, there will be a green painting and everything. But no, there was really something coming from the heart. And hotel room is always the same. What makes the difference is people. It's the food. It's the event, or because I was not impressed. You have a very big room, and they are all the same at the end of the day. But the people are not the same. And having a warm welcome in the morning, and it's really precious. It has. People say it has no value, but it has a value. So for me, that's more important.
Sorry, I think
I would like, yes, I
no,
would
no, I
like
was just saying that the guest.
no, just to say a big hello to our African friend from Uganda and South Africa. I see in
Right.
the chat some notes there. So
Yes.
that's very interesting to see. Very interesting to see, and maybe it's food for thought for us to make a connection and bring a new speaker on our next edition
Yes.
of the
Next
talk.
time.
Somebody
Next
from
time.
Africa there, because
Absolutely.
what I see here is that this is a global issue here. This talk that we are talking here is not
Yes.
related to Catalonia or related to Vietnam or related to the
Vietnam. No.
UK or to any country. No.
Absolutely.
This can happen in every single country around the globe. There, that in one way or another, you have the sustainability impact in a lower scale, the climate change, the sustainable development goals. So this has no frontiers. So good food
Absolutely.
for thought, and a good hello to our team and
Thank
followers
you.
there in Africa. Back to you,
Thank you
Maribel.
for
Yeah.
joining us. No, it's thank you. No, I was just wanted to say that what Catherine was pointing out is everything. So how we make the experience, whether it's with conservation projects locally, the education from the practices, as John said before, using technology to show guest options, as Will said before. So I think that's very much our industry is all about the guest. It's all about the people. So if we go back to the roots and we just think about the people, we can very much have the answers. So we have just few minutes left before we end the session, and I wanted to have an insight from each of you, something that you want to share, some of the biggest challenges or recommendations for the audience, something that is in your heart that you think it will help someone else, whether it's from the asset management perspective or from destination management point of view or technology side, what's something you want to share with the audience, with your colleagues in the industry? Because as Mika said, we are worldwide, right? So it can support anyone in the world. So please share your insights. Perhaps I'll start with you, Will, and then go back to the rest.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting conversation just having there about about how I think every country and every community has its own sustainability challenges, and what's one challenge in one country is going to be different in another. And I think it's really important that we bring local communities involved with everything we're doing, whether that is food in terms of sourcing local produce, or whether it's embracing kind of local sustainability practices. So yeah, I guess from my side, I just think what's what's most important is looking at what technology is out there, and using that in a way which suits your business. I think like I said, every business is going to be different, but if we can harness all the different technologies out there, and bring the consumers on board with that journey, making sure that everything that we're doing is for the benefit of the local community, and working towards that wider kind of sustainable development goals, then that's the best way to approach it.
Thank you, Will. It's nice to have your impact, and you're doing an amazing job with the technology to bring awareness. Catherine, you're right next to him in my screen.
So two things, if you allow me. First, very basic things that I've learned is that don't try to be popular at all costs, individually or as a business or as a destination, because cost, the popularity doesn't go well with responsibility, I would say. And second things, I really would like to see more social enterprises in tourism and hospitality, profit with purpose. I think that's a very interesting model. And as I said, it's contributing positively to the branding of destinations and businesses. So supporting social enterprises and creating, framework for them that allows them, to be rewarded for their good deeds. That's it.
That's very good insight, and perhaps we can discuss this more, because there is a lot of research as well from the academic side on the social entrepreneurship and how to use it to empower or increase the environmental and social impact in hospitality businesses and tourism destinations. So that's a great point. Thank you, Catherine, for bringing it up. And John, we could not see you, but we could hear you very well. So what are your thoughts you want to leave with the audience today?
I think my thoughts are: never stop looking in every corner of the hotel operation. If you're a hotelier or a developer, never stop looking to every single corner of the operation in ways that you can be sustainable and reduce carbon emissions, and do whatever you can to be compliant, because there is always, as many years as I've been in this business, and as many years as I've been very conscious of environmental sustainability, I still find ways that we can reduce emissions and look for things that we can be environmentally friendly all the time, and involve the staff of the hotels, involve the staff of the operation, because they come up with great ideas as well that you never even think of sometimes. So education, involve everyone in the whole, make it a foundation of the operation, make it part of the culture, and just continue, never stop. That's my lasting thoughts.
A very good point, and involving all the teams, because most of the
Yes.
time you have a sustainability report that is just there in a desk somewhere in a property, and no one really leaves the culture of sustainability regeneration practices and is not involved. So very, very interesting. Also that point, engaging the team and listening, which is a big part of it, because they have amazing, brilliant inputs, I'm sure.
And let them
Yes.
know the results. Let them know the results of
Yes,
that's very important as well.
yeah. So listening, letting them the resorts, having social enterprises, engaging with technology, And Michelangelo, what are your last thoughts? No, he cannot listen to me, and or I don't know. The technology with him, it's been today an issue, but perhaps if we have him back to have his thoughts. Otherwise, I just want to thank you for the people have been with us from the community. Thank you very much for being with us. It's been a pleasure to have this discussion, and thank you for all the speakers, Catherine, Will, and John, and thank you for your time and your insights. I'm sure that the audience can learn from your practices, and if they need more information, I'm sure we can share tools and best practices, and after the call they can connect, and you can even give them more insights about anything they need. But thank you very much for your time and for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank and
Thank you.
Yeah, someone is
Yeah.
saying something on the very good. Someone is just sharing some comments there on the chat, saying but nice chat, and to learn about the stage of operation. Thank you for the comments, Aisha. So if you have any questions, you can share them with us here on the chat. Otherwise, we will close the session, but I think that I just comment that's the last one. But again, thank you for the audience. Thank you for the speakers. It's been a pleasure to share the discussion with you, and we look forward to sharing more discussions in the coming year about making practical and the reality of sustainability in a daily basis. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks so much, Mario.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.